Welcome to Resilience Talk, hosted by Paul Spencer of Second Nature Solutions. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Resilience Talk podcast. I have with me, as always, Paul Spencer. Paul, thank you for being here. Today, we are going to be talking about change. Why is change important? And how this relates to faith. So last episode, we talked about where is your faith? We talked about this being a confusing, chaotic age that we find ourselves in. But today, a core component of being faithful and building resilience is the ability to change. But before you even have the ability to change, we have to understand, why is change important? What does it do for us? So, Paul, you have some thoughts on change and what it does for us. You have examples we've been talking about this week about how change is essential to bringing energy into a company and having this kind of rebirth moment. So tell us about this. Tell us your thoughts on change.
Yes, so maybe just going back to the faith part. So what we talked about before was the faith and hope of things that are swirling around us, and we lose control, and sometimes we lose a little bit of control, and sometimes it's seemingly like desperate, like everything around me is just falling down, and no matter where I grab, right, I lose a foothold, I lose a handhold, and I can't get a grip on anything. And that was the theme of what we talked about before is, in the end, you're just left with faith, right, in your relationship with God. And so faith and hope are also essential, at least from my perspective, of where we are and what we're doing. And change, like how you let us in, change is an essential part of bringing energy and a rebirth to whatever we're up to. So just kind of going back to what I was just saying, if things are falling apart around me, let's just say it's my business, and it's on the edge of the cliff, and the cliff is just falling into the sea, and there's nothing I can do about it, no matter what I try or what I do, and it's almost left for me to just observe. And I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but I've experienced it. I've seen it happen to others. And it's just something that you watch, right? And in the end, you still have faith that I can bounce back, right? And sometimes for each of us, that takes more time or less time. And we all process those things as pretty much grief in our own way, right? And there's all those stages of grief. And so maybe for some of us, it takes next week, and I'm ready to go back to work and figure out what I'm going to do next, or do it in a better way or a different way. And some of us, it may take months, maybe years, and maybe never, right? We never want to touch that thing again. But in the end, that there is something to be said about those things around us going away, because there is a rebirth, right? There's an opportunity for something to come back. I think my yaya, which is a Greek grandmother, right? Yaya, she would mention about that when somebody would pass away, she would always, however, she knew this, she would always point out that there was a new baby born, right? So-and-so passed away, but so-and-so just had a baby. And she would always recall, right, that with death comes new, right? There's a rebirth. And you can think about this as also with like forest fires, right? We have this huge devastation of lately, a lot of forest fires, and those trees are burned, and animals and all kinds of stuff, houses, right? But what we know is you go back to those areas, and there's plant life, right? There's animals. It's not like that is gone forever. It actually doesn't take long for trees and plants and animals to go right back into that area. It's a rebirth.
That's right.
So anyway, this is an extreme way of saying change. I think today we don't want to talk about extreme change. But just going back to the faith and the resiliency is just knowing that when things aren't going well and we're experiencing something that we're not comfortable with or that we don't want, sometimes, even though in the moment it might not be easy to see, sometimes into the future, you'll be able to look back and you say, well, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be doing this, right? If that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have met so-and-so. If that wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't have hired this person and that person, and we wouldn't even be close to doing the things that we're doing today.
That's right. That's right. I have several friends who are experiencing layoffs right now. And I know, having gone through that in my career, there's usually really amazing opportunities that come in the future by having let that thing go. Whether you're forced out, it's not of our own will, but by having that freedom, even though it's painful, there's a lot of new opportunities that can come. So if I'm understanding you right, we need change to do the things that we want to do. Mm-hmm. We need to embrace change wherever we want to go, hit our goals, the performance of the business, things in our marriage, life, that sort of thing. But you have to let things go. Something has to die in order to experience that rebirth in the future, which can be a very scary thing. So how do you
maybe just qualify that. Something doesn't necessarily have to die.
Okay.
But it's when it's just that scenario when things are kind of out of control for you and you can't get a grip.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay to let that go, right? Now, I'm not saying you don't do the best you can and try to do the things that make good decisions and all of that. But at some point, it's just wise to let it go.
Yeah.
I think what we want to talk about today is proactive change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So those are the things what we've been talking about is things that are happening to us or around us that we don't have a sphere of control around.
Yeah.
Right? So there are opportunities that we have where a lot of the family businesses are very secure and feel safe in the fact that we have a lot of tenure in our business, right? So if we have a 30-year-old business, sometimes a 50-year-old business, and some of our staff have been with us for 20, 30 years. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that feels good, and it is an accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment and you end up with family, not just your family, but because they've been there so long and they've likely helped you build your business.
Yeah.
When it was fresh and risky, right? And so they're family members to that business. They're just a big part of that business.
That's right.
So that's pretty normal, and it feels secure and safe. And why wouldn't it? What I'm proposing, or rather encouraging, is that there are moments when you can be aware that the reasons why we're not able to move here, or the reasons why we're losing customers here, or the reason why I can't really put my finger on it, but it just feels not sure, is because you haven't invoked any change, right? Another customer of mine says, if you're not growing, you're dying. Right? So,
I've heard that, yeah.
And it's not about, in this case, it's not necessarily that you're not growing and then you're not advancing. It's just this feeling, right? So here's an example. There may be opportunities to bring in somebody from the outside. Ooh, dirty word, right? No. From somebody from the outside who's worked in corporate or worked in a different industry and it's not going to have our same values and what's that going to do, right?
That's right.
Well, what it does is the same reason that you work with me and you hire with me, right? We have similar values. We have interests in both me serving you and you having some kind of initiative that you want to achieve, right? We work together, and I'm an outsider, but you work with me, right? So you can bring outsiders in who, when you bring somebody in who's new to the company, they want to do something, and they're generally excited. And I would say 10 times out of 10, they're excited to join your team.
Yep.
They've left somewhere, or maybe they were looking, right, and they weren't working, and you've hired them in, and you've give them a great story about who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, and they want to join your team. And so when they show up that first day, they're eager. And that just by itself brings a lot of energy. And if you give them enough room to make decisions and to do things maybe that you wouldn't normally do, or maybe that you're a little uncomfortable with, you'll be surprised by how much energy that brings to you and to those around you and to your employees. But you'll also be surprised how much you learn by, I don't think that's going to work. I don't agree with that. That's not how we do things around here. But you let it run for a little bit. You don't have to be risky with it and say you're just going to do whatever you want, but give them a month. Give them 6 weeks and then see what happens. And you'll be surprised that by the time you're done with that, you'll say, I didn't expect that to happen, right? Oh, I'm surprised. Oh, that's interesting, right? And those are the phrases that are bringing creativity and energy and some rebirth into, oh, you mean if we do that and then the customer did this? Yeah. Oh, I wonder if we were to, right? And then it just goes from there.
I like that you put phrases to that experience, because that is real. And there's so many people that would say like, oh, you got to have creativity in your business. You got to have this culture that has this kind of, creativity to it or something. And, but it's like, what does that even mean? But I love that phrase when you hear that, because I've heard that in my career, that is creativity. I think that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. So an important component of this, I want to make sure we hit on this topic, because we were talking about it this week, of the idea of play, and that you have to be willing to play and experiment in a business in order to bring about that kind of dynamism, if you will. Mm-hmm. But that can seem scary. What is play? I don't want you playing with my business. Please don't do that. So, but then the other thing that we were talking about was, it takes a lot of resilience to be able to take on this idea of play and learning and experimentation. So talk us through that. How do I get from this place that like, play, experimentation, creativity, that sounds scary to me, but and getting to that place of change, walk me through that process.
Sure. Yeah. So resilience is also an input into being resilient is not having your identity tied into the business, right? So in order for me to be willing and accepting and actually happy and eager to some change in my business, is that my business is not a stark reflection of me, right? And so if I'm resilient and I'm able to just say, yeah, I'm willing to let the business shift and change from how I built it or how I have designed it. Doesn't mean I let go of the governance of it. I can still govern. I can still manage where it's going. But if you are starkly afraid of it getting out of control and you losing your identity with the business because it moves, then you're not as much resilient as you could be. Right? So one of the things that we can talk about is experimenting and playing with it. So having some play in what we do and how we speak to each other and how we decide what we're going to do. So an experiment could be, just going back to the example we had before, is we've got a lot of tenure in our management staff and maybe even our executive staff. And it would be fun to experiment with bringing in a new executive who is in a different industry than ours and has these whatever qualities, right? And you may say that, why would we do that? We don't need that. But just the idea of doing it is probably already making you uncomfortable, right?
I can hear listeners cringing right now listening to
this. And just like, like if you're watching somebody and you're like, so tomorrow is part of our team building exercise. Well, actually, we're not going to do it tomorrow. It's almost lunchtime. We're going to do it right after lunch. So we're all going to carpool over there. And everybody's looking at you like, what are we doing? And we're going to go skydiving, right? And all of a sudden, people are touching their face, and they got scratches on their shoulders and behind their back, and they're like, we're going to go skydiving, right? So that's the feeling you're getting by saying, we're going to hire a new executive into your team, but we don't need that. Well, but what could happen, right? What would be a benefit of bringing somebody in? And those are the ways you start to form your experiment. Like with Deming, we would say, what's your theory? So the theory is, if we bring in an outside executive who has these qualities, they will bring energy into our initiative of growing into a new vertical, right? Or they will bring energy into our lethargic sales staff or our operations team that just can't seem to get out of their own way, right? But you have a theory around that, and then you design the role, you design who you're going to talk to, how you're going to network, and then you bring them in, right? And the thing that you have with the language is really important because it's an experiment. And like you said, I've had an owner tell me that we're not experimenting with my business, which is also fun. For me, it's fun. Probably not for her. But anyway, the idea of the experiment and the language of experiment and theory is just like if we were at school, right? And we're in the science lab, we don't know what's going to happen. And we're going to learn by observing and measuring what happens, right? And so what it does is it tells us right away by the words that we're using that we do not know what the outcome will be, which also tells us that if it fails or if it's not what we expected, then that's okay. And so what we then we say, well, Paul, if we go through this whole process and we fail, that would be a waste of time. And we would say, maybe, but I guarantee you we would learn something, right? And the learning is the rebirth. The learning is the growth. The learning is the energy of what do we do next? What could we tweak? What could we, let's say we have a bad hire and it just goes poorly. Worst case scenario, like just terrible for all kinds of different reasons. And we could say, we're never going to do that again. Or we could look back and we could say, all right, this experiment, this is what we expected. We got something way different. Why was that? What did we learn? Well, we learned that maybe the role that we put on paper does not match the person we got in reality. And why is that? Well, maybe, right? There's a whole slew of things that we can start to learn, and then we can choose to not do that again or choose to improve the process and go again, right? But in the end, we're learning, and we're constantly learning. And I know I'm talking about hiring, but this could fit in operations. It could fit in on your shop floor, in manufacturing, right? It could fit in services, fits in sales all the time. Sales is really good at this. They're used to experimenting a lot, even though they may not call it that. So, yeah.
You're touching on some really deep stuff in that failure is like one of these. Fear is a core human emotion that is underneath failure and motivating us in a lot of different ways. Like I'm an owner of a business. I run a team. I have objectives. I'm afraid of failure. I don't want to fail. the humiliation, the shame, whatever might be a part of that. I
Yeah,
feel like
for
I'm
sure.
not competent at this, that sort of thing. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that it's like, yeah, you should just experiment, try new things, and if it fails, no big deal. It's we learned. And I'm thinking, how do you relate to fear? Like there's something in this conversation that I feel like is really central. That is, how do you develop the kind of self or culture or communication or whatever it might be to relate well with fear and seeing it as learning and being resilient enough to handle that instead of going into that common step of, humiliation or shame or whatever it might be. And I don't know if that's tracking with where you're going, but that's what keeps coming to mind to me.
Well, it's normal. I mean, it's completely normal to have some fear of failure, right? For all the
Okay.
things that you just said.
Yeah.
So if you're not feeling that, then I'd wonder, right, where you are, right? I mean,
Are you a
they talk,
psychopath?
yeah, maybe a psychopath. But I mean, even people who are like, you hear this a lot, like for like singers, like celebrity singers, right? That those like 4, 5, 10 minutes before they go on stage is like this full anxiety. Like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah, I've heard that.
Like, it's this nervous energy.
Yeah.
So everybody gets it, no matter how many times you've gone out on stage and you sang that song, right? So I'd say that's normal. It's absolutely normal and completely understandable that you would have fear with the idea of experimenting or playing around with something, right? But it all goes back down to resilience and the fortitude, courage that you have to be able to step out onto the stage, right? Because you do it 1 or 2 times, you do it a handful of times, and that singer knows that they can sing, and they know that they can rock it out, right? And they know that everybody's going to love it. But for whatever reason, that those few minutes to go out there, all those doubts come in, right? All of that plays, and you're like, right? You got to take a deep breath. But as soon as you go out there, you're on and you're good, right? So for somebody who's new at going out on stage or experimenting for the first time out of their safe zone, it takes a lot of courage to do it, right? To step out onto the stage and go for it. And it may not go well, right? And I would say that I'm not going to put it in the singing category because I don't even know anything about it. But this is what I do know. This is a proven fact with all of my clients. Everybody out there listening is you've all been in the safe, happy zone with lots of tenure, and you've had lots of failures bringing in those new, fresh people. And you've had maybe one role or another that is almost a revolving door of, this is my third IT director in 4 years, right? I've tried to hire a number 2 3 or 4 different times. Each one of them didn't last 90 days. And the one that lasted more than 90 days, I knew 60 days in, they weren't going to make it. Right? And so then you say, why do you think that is? But they don't know, right? Why is it that you can't sing when you get out on stage? Well, because you don't have enough reps, right? You don't have enough practice at it, right? Singing may be a little bit different than doing an interview process, meaning maybe there's a talent aspect to singing. But in the interview process, it's a process, right? You put it together. And yes, maybe some people are more skilled or talented at doing the interview itself. But in the end, you put a process together, you run it, you realize that didn't work out so well, you revise it, you go from there. But those first couple of times, if you're doing it on your own without a guide, right? Without somebody who is kind of that singing coach or expert to guide you through, and you've never done it before, of course, it's not going to go well. Of course, you're going to get unexpected results, right? But that's okay, right? Because if you have the mindset, again, of I'm doing it, let's say you're just doing it unguided, and I've never done it before, you do the best you can, but then you have the mindset, like you just said, I'm experimenting with it, I have a theory, and if it doesn't work, I'll go back and I'll refine it. And that's the flow, right? So just going back, just kind of loop it back to what you were saying. Where's the fear? Well, the fear is counteracted by the fortitude to do something, right? Having the courage to go for it, right? And then after that, the courage will only get you to outcomes if you're willing to get some reps and maybe even some outside help and some expertise in it, right? I can't, yeah. So I was just going to go back to the music analogy, right? At some point, you can teach yourself how to play guitar and all that, and I know people do, but even people who are really good at that, as far as I know, tend to go and learn, right? They tend to have some kind of coach or singing coach, or right, and that's how they get better, because there's an expert behind you, around you, to help you improve.
That's right. Even Tiger Woods, Serena Williams, all these amazing people still had they had swing coaches. They're still improving their aspects of their techniques, and they're the best in the world, and they go to coaching every week. Yeah, and that's actually another great analogy too. Is Tiger Woods at his peak was the best, right? But he still has a swing coach. And then you would say, well, that guy's never won a tournament, right? I'm putting it into the analogy of being an owner and working with outsiders. That person's never ran a $50 million company that does X, Y, and Z, exactly what I do. Well, okay. But why would you want to hire somebody that did that, right? I want to bring in the person who has thought about sales or something different, or maybe a different industry that's going to create some energy, some change into my business and give me some insights that's different than what I'm used to. And so that golf swing coach is an outsider who spends a lot of time thinking about the techniques and the flow of things and all of those things, and that's all they're focused on. They read research reports on how to do your swing. I mean, they're during the week they're working. They are the
expert in that one thing. Right? Does that mean they can go out and be like Tiger Woods? No, but that's why Tiger Woods wants that person. Yeah. So if I'm
recapping and putting the logic together, an owner could be experiencing some kind of static experience where it's just not really clicking. Things are not really humming, or there's not really any energy or passion like there should be. Mm-hmm. So in order to get where they want to go, there's got to be some change. And so there's got to be things that you have to let go, typically, in order to experience that change, which can be scary. This can be a new thing. Even if you've done it before and it didn't go well, there's still that fear of moving to this next step, bringing in this change. And a way to overcome this fear is keep trying, hire a coach or a consultant or some kind of expert to come help you. Mm-hmm. But additionally, separate yourself a bit from the business, take a step back, look at it objectively, think of it as a process. Think of it as a way to learn, experiment, even play. It should be fun to try new things and to bring in this energy and passion again, so that you can get more performance out of your business, more, bring in that hire, make this change initiative happen, bring in this new technology, improve your processes, that sort of thing. And so that's kind of the process of going through that. Exactly.
Yeah, and I would add one more, which is to bring joy into work.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
that sounds lovely. I want that. That sounds great. Everybody should have that.
Yeah, when you're doing things that are fresh and fun and exciting, right? It brings joy into work.
Yeah.
And this is also proven. So with the different customers that I have, right, the clients, they're in various stages of all this.
Yeah.
Some are like what we've been describing, where they're kind of wrestling with what does change look like, and do I bring in another person or not? And it doesn't have to be people. Sometimes we wrestle with a poor customer and why we need to cut that customer because they're taking way too much overhead, distracting everybody. But we've been right. So it doesn't always have to be a person. All the way over to those companies, family businesses that have embraced the change and brought in new people, fresh perspectives, and it's not immediate. This isn't like you snap your fingers and then you're done. It is a process, and it could take months, even years, right? But what happens is that your business before is a shadow of itself, right? It's you look back and you're like, oh man, I can't believe we were that way. Not because it was a bad thing. It's just almost hard to imagine what it was like, right? Because now we're doing things in a different way, and we've got different people working on different things. And as an owner, I've experienced this. You, as owners, start to have joy in the work. You start to see that, oh, I don't have to own every little tiny piece. I don't have to be involved with all of it. I can let these people, right? You design it that way. And then now you can work on fun things. And like that is, from a business owner's perspective, being strategic and dreaming and thinking about what's coming next. That's where you want to be. I'm not saying that Paul is saying that that's where you want to be. I'm saying that's really knowing all of you. That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
And so you can put yourself there.
So change equals vision, which equals joy. You can have joy in your work again, but you need some breathing room, which requires change.
Yeah. Yeah. Joy in work is working on something that you are empowered to work on. So even a worker, if I'm allowed to work on the processes, make things better, right, while I'm doing my work, that's fun, right? And you snowball that out. We've talked about this before. You snowball that out by your 30 employees, 200 employees, and they're all improving processes. What does that mean for your business? As opposed to the traditional way, which is just do your work and Paul will manage you.
Yeah.
And Paul will tell you what to do and what not to do, right? Just think how much drag that brings to your business, especially over 20, 30 years, right? You could see the difference between those two businesses and let them run for 20 years, where they will be.
That's lovely.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that one will have more revenue than the other. Potentially, maybe one will have more profit than the other. But I guarantee you, if you walked into them, you would feel a buzz in one, which is a joyful buzz, and one is this stale, kind of stagnant thing that we're talking about, which is people are just in their cubes or in their office spaces or on the floor just doing what they do.
Yeah, just grinding away. And the funny thing, too, is when you're doing your work joyfully, with passion, with creativity, it's likely higher quality work. Same workers doing the same process, same task, but the joyful ones will actually probably do it better, faster, more energy doing it. So
you definitely get more quality for sure.
So that's what everybody who runs a business wants, is joy in their work, and they want the work to be good, higher quality, better. But you've got to have some resilience doing that, which requires some faith to inspire that kind of change and courage to get through and do it. So
yeah, for sure.
So what a call to action, a call to arms to take courage and to change, have hope and faith, and do it well.
Yeah, I think the call to action is just the awareness. I know we've talked about this a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
Just by listening to this, you may not know what the experiment is or what it is that you're actually after from a process perspective, or who knows, whatever your theory might be, or you may not even have your theory. But just listening to this and thinking about it, you will arrive somewhere, right? And just the awareness of it will give you some some juice, right? To say, maybe a couple of weeks from now, a month from now, you're ready, and you're gonna think about, I want to do this, whatever that this is.
And I would encourage too, listen for that phrase, interesting. That to me, that says a lot to me. I love that you mentioned that earlier in creativity. Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you. I know we are going through a momentous age where change is everywhere, and it's something to embrace because it can be a really beautiful thing. So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
All right, my man. Well, we will see you next time. Thanks, Paul.
All right, good. Thank you.